Welcome everyone to my winter weather outlook for 2010-2011. I'm doing something a little different this year. I'm actually doing a video with my winter weather outlook instead of a long drawn out post that you have to read online. You get to watch it online this year. So I had a little extra time this weekend and thought, what the heck, why not? So without further ado, let's dive right in and let's talk about some of the wild cards that we have for this winter. Biggest story probably that most of you have probably heard about is the big La Nina going on in the equatorial Pacific right now, as well as in the northern Pacific, the negative phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation that's going on. We should see a negative PDO for this winter. So you got the northern Pacific cooling, you got the equatorial Pacific that's cooling. What's going to happen over the lower 48? We'll get to it. The EPO and the NAO are a couple more telekinesian indices that sometimes can drive patterns across the lower 48 when the EPO is negative in the wintertime. That usually we get a ridge over Alaska or northwest Canada, and that can drive colder air into the eastern United States. When the NAO is negative, that's ridging or blocking in the atmosphere near Greenland, and that can also promote colder and stormier conditions in the eastern U.S. So we'll look at just a couple things to watch out as we progress through the rest of fall and into winter. Solar activity, solar cycle 24 is at an all-time low. And NASA has recently come down with their sunspot count and their solar predictions for solar cycle 24. That's ridiculous. They should have done that 2 years ago, but it's the government, right? But anyway, low solar activity will certainly impact us. And snow and ice cover, I got a map updating that towards the end here in regards to how the ice formation in the Arctic Ocean is doing, as well as snow cover in Russia, Alaska, and northern Canada, which that's where our cold air comes from in the winter. So if that is looking good early on, which it is, we'll see how that will impact us as well. I think you'll like it. All right, here we go. Let's get started then with the global SST anomalies. That stands for sea surface temperature, and you can see the areas that are below average. Here's the La Nina. Yeah, I think that's clearly evident to everyone with the cooled waters. It's pretty much a basin-wide event. This is INSO region 1 and 2 over here. 3.4 is out in here, and region 4 is the western portions of the Pacific over here. But you can clearly see pretty much a moderate La Nina going on with the possibility of it becoming strong. I think it'll continue to strengthen. Here's the PDO signature, the negative PDO signature with the cold waters in the northern Pacific. Look at that, with the Gulf of Alaska cooling down rather nicely. How will that impact us? Well, we'll see. And you can also see the warmer than average waters around Greenland here, and that could promote the negative NAO, possibly with some ridging and some high latitude blocking occurring over there, which could help out. So a lot of interesting things going on around the globe if you just look at this image. Fascinating stuff. Okay, typically during a La Nina, this is what we call a cold episode. For the winter time, you typically have a lot of cold air in Alaska and Canada, and you can see that there, especially northwest Canada, and that's where our storm systems like to tap that cold air from. And you'll also notice that with the polar jet slamming and the Pacific jet, slamming into the Pacific Northwest, that's why we have wetter than average conditions there. And the storm track likes to favor the Ohio Valley because we generally have a southeast ridge of high pressure there that keeps drier and warmer than average conditions over the southern United States, as well as the southwest. You can get a ridge there sometimes as well. So colder than average here, wetter than average for us. Will the jet stream allow the two to clash for big winter storms? I think we'll see some of that. All right, here is the latest on La Nina for those wondering, courtesy of the Australian Bureau for Meteorology. Pretty much moderate here with minus 1.53 below average. That's in Celsius. We're about 1.5 degrees below average, and you can see the decline or the onset of La Nina as you will from the El Nino that we had last year. There's the El Nino, Now we're in La Nina, as you can see. Okay, September telekinesian indices. There's the Pacific Decadal Oscillation once again. Clearly a negative phase, and a rather strong negative phase at that. And that did drop from August, 1.27. Again, we're still in October, so that's why I won't have those numbers for like another month. So that's why we had to go with September's numbers. But you can clearly see the Pacific is getting colder. The QBO last winter, that was a big wild card last winter because it was negative. And we had low solar activity, and that contributes to blocking. And that's one big reason why we had the historical negative NAO and negative Arctic oscillation, the AO, combining for big nor'easters for New England, where they got hammered last winter. And that also caused us to have a record-setting February in regards to snowfall here in Cincinnati. Well, we don't expect that this year as far as the QBO is concerned. It is positive, and it is rising. It was 1.44 in August, now 6.57 in September. I don't think it'll get out of control, maybe plus 10, 12. I don't think it's going to be plus 20 or anything, so I think the QBO is right where we want it. NAO, we are in a decadal phase, in my opinion, of it being negative, because from April 2008 to now, it's been negative for every month but 3. So will we see it average negative for the wintertime? Well, maybe not. I'm thinking neutral, slightly positive. But that's okay, because that does not favor the East Coast getting hammered. That favors the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley to get in on the action. So that's okay. But that just means that if it's not really negative for a long period of time, we'll have changing weather patterns. The cold's not going to stay locked in for months on end. Probably a couple of weeks, they'll get warm, the cold will come back, that kind of thing. That's what I expect. And the PNA, when it's positive, you get a ridge in the west, a trough in the east. It's been averaging pretty much positive for a while, except for about 4 months in the last year and a half. But usually when you have a La Nina and negative PDO combo, that generally favors the trough to be out west and the ridge in the east, hence the southeast ridge. So that probably will favor more negative PNA this winter. All right, the Madden-Julian oscillation, usually with the La Nina, it's non-existent. It likes to hang out in the circle of death. And this is in regards to tropical forcing out in the Indian Ocean. And that does drive our weather patterns over here, because everything that occurs, because weather flows from west to east, so whatever occurs out west is going to eventually translate east. Now, in regards to the phases, we like in the wintertime phases 8 and 1 to promote cold in the eastern United States. In the fall, we like 5 and 6, and that's what we're at right now. So I think that's one reason why we're going to have an early start to winter. And here's the model forecasts on that. The operational GFS says, nope, we're going to go into the circle of death now. It's over. NAO is done. No more tropical forcing. It's just going to stall. Same thing with the ensembles. So that's typical for a La Nina. We actually got kind of lucky. We got the thing out of the circle of death and had it start progressing through its phases. And we actually had some nice tropical forcing there for a while. But it's eventually going to go bye-bye. That's why we're not going to see the subtropical jet like we do with an El Nino with those juicy Gulf Coast systems. Not going to happen. And it's going to be a northern branch of the jet stream dominated winter. And the lack of MJO activity is a big reason why. Soil moisture here, the southeast ridge will be a big player because it's been drier than average for a good chunk of this year. There's our ongoing drought in the Ohio Valley as well. Look at the plains. That's where the action's been. And also, due to the tropical systems that affected Texas earlier, they've done very well in the rainfall department too. Look for this to go up due to La Nina. And I think as the jet starts to go south as we progress through later in the fall and early in the winter, I think some of this, out here in the plains will get translated here. So we'll be okay in the drought. Over here in the south, you're done. That drought's going to intensify thanks to La Nina. The solar activity, real quick, it's been low. It's going to continue to be low. I mean, look at these pathetic sunspots here. I've already talked about that. That's just going to promote more cold in Canada and Alaska, more snow up there to build. Low solar activity, it's going to promote more cold air. That's all it's going to do. And continue to cool the oceans. So that's another reason why La Nina can get strong, is due to the low solar output also. Snow and ice cover map. You can see yellow is ice, white is snow. Look at Siberia. Isn't that delightful? Filled in very nicely. Here's some new ice along the Russian coast that's developed in the last couple days. More snow now in northern Alaska. About almost half of that state's covered now. And northern Canada has some snow as well. So the cold air production is brewing. Check this at the end of the month. You're going to see a lot more snow down in here, where it's bare ground right now. I guarantee it. All right, climate models here, the CFS. Just got to go through this real quick, showing a colder than average November, and then it's going with normal pretty much for December, pretty much normal for January. It's probably slightly above average February. I disagree with March here. It's not going to be a torch like this map is showing. I think it'll be colder than average as the NAO comes back. I do agree with the cold air here, here, and here, though. Brutal winter for Alaska and northwest Canada, and that's thanks to the La Nina negative PDO combo. And there's precipitation. We know it's been a dry October. November's kind of dry according to this. We average normal for December, and the wetness really kicks in January, February, and March. I think the wetness will kick in earlier than these maps indicate, but you do get the general idea. So that's why I posted them. All right, I've already talked about this. We're going to see wild swings in temps. We're going to be cold and warm. We're going to see everything there. We'll get a few weeks of cold, a few weeks of warmth. Above average precipitation likely due to La Nina. Above average snow, I think, is also possible. I think the storm tracks, due to the NAO not being as severe negative as it was last month, is going to favor the Great Lakes and the Appalachians. So we'll have some rain systems when they're Great Lakes cutters. We'll have more snow and ice systems when they're Appalachian runners. Clippers will be abundant due to the northern range of the jet stream dominating this winter, and due to the warmer than average Great Lakes water, a big lake effect snow season I expect in November and December there. Moving on, here's my November breakdown. I think winter will start early. We're going to get our first accumulation in November, as we'll get some atmospheric blocking with the NAO, and the EPO should be negative. So that's why I expect that. We should get above average snow in November and below average temperatures. December, we should have another cold period that will allow us to get some snow. That's why I'm going above average there. But I do think we'll see some warmer shots as well as the NAO fluctuates and the southeast ridge begins to flex its muscle just a little bit, and I expect average temperatures there. January, more wild temperature swings, big time this month. Snowfall should be around average if we're lucky. Could be a little bit below because I expect more Great Lakes cutters, and I expect the southeast ridge to flex its muscle during this month. But I do think that there'll be about a week period where we could cash in. Otherwise, I expect more rain than snow. I think February will be, especially the first half. This may change in the second half, but the first half should be warmer than average, should be our warmest winter month on average, above average temperatures, below average snowfall. This is where I disagreed with the CFS. Climate model. I think winter makes a big comeback, below average temps as the NAO reasserts itself. The La Nina should be weakening pretty good by then, and thus above average snowfall. With a PDO, negative PDO, and a La Nina combo, November and March tend to be pretty good in winter for the eastern United States. So that's why I'm going with that. I looked back in the 40s and 50s and saw that climatology, so I thought it was smart. Real quick, storm traps. There's your Clipper storm tracks. Some will be good for the Great Lakes, and others will be good for us. And as you can see, the Great Lakes storm tracks with the jet plowing into the Pacific Northwest. That's why I got, the storms coming in up here, and then tracking southeast, and then low pressure either riding up into the lakes, depending if the southeast ridge is strong, or if it's a little more flat and the NAO is more negative, or maybe around neutral or so, we'll get more APS runners. I don't expect it to be severely negative. That's why I'm not favoring the East Coast. The East Coast could get a couple nor'easters, certainly, but I'm not favoring that. All right, temperature and precip map, typical with La Nina, near average in the middle, colder and snowier than average in the north, and warmer than drier in the south thanks to the southeast ridge. We're the battle zone in all this. I expect some of the most violent weather to be over the Midwest and Ohio Valley, especially ice storms. That's why I got us in the battle zone on that. Snowfall forecast, it just depends on if we get more Great Lakes cutters or more APS runners, and I can't tell you. I think we'll see both. If we see more, these numbers may go up.